Hi and welcome to Snookered. My first guest is a man of many, many talents. He played basketball at high level, played hurling at high level, played soccer at high level, but he's most famous for, of course, winning the All-Ireland back in 1995. And he's a hero to the Dublin faithful. It is, of course, Jason Sherlock. Welcome, Jason.
Thank you, Ken. I didn't play snooker to a high level.
Well, that's what I was going to say. You played sports at every other level very, very highly. I think I'm lucky that you never took up snooker.
I played snooker, I just was never any good at it. So I'm hoping you might
snooker,
be able to help.
like, I mean, you were brought up in Finglas. Snooker was very, very popular all over Dublin back in, the 80s and 90s when we grew up. And in fact, I won my first tournament in Finglas in Ballygall Road, would you believe, an Irish under 16 championship. But you must have played a little bit, did you?
Yeah, well, I remember I got a table for one of my birthdays, a 6x3, and it couldn't even fit in the house at that stage, so we used to have to put it on the kitchen table. And then where I lived in Finglas, there was Janelle. They had snooker tables there, and I used to go up there with my uncle, but unfortunately it was just one of those games that I just could never take. I could never get my angles, but I
suppose you never had much time, did you? Because you played basketball you were captain of the Irish team. You played hurling down in Cork when you were there on your holidays, and to a very high standard as well. Of course, you played football as well for Vincent's, and then went on to UCD at Shamrock Rovers. Got a try. You were nearly getting a try for Liverpool at one stage, weren't you?
Yeah, I was lucky enough to, I love sport. I love all sport, and the great thing about this country is that sport is such a big connector. And I played a number of different sports to a certain level, but snooker was one that evaded me. So
well, I'm very, very lucky you didn't take up snooker. So thanks very much. Well, here, let's go. Let's have a little game, and let's see how good you are.
Not very now. Starting off Kit Oak, lefty. So Jimmy White was my man. So.
Well, not bad. So how come you're a lefty snooker player and everything else you did was?
I was all over. I was left-handed. I wrote with my left hand.
Right. Okay.
But I played basketball right. Okay. I played golf right. But I play snooker and I play tennis left-handed.
Oh, really? Yeah.
So I'd love to say that has helped me in some way, but unfortunately it hasn't. Got you on the rest already.
You got me on the rest. Well, listen, because of my height, I use the rest quite a lot. But I read your book. Oh, that's not a bad start. I read your book, and it's a fantastic book. But tell us, when you've grown up in Finglas, you had a lot of problems. You called it slagging in book. We sort of call it now, I suppose, racism in a way, But it was a difficult time for you because obviously, your father's from Hong Kong, your mother's from Ireland, and you look different to the rest, But how did you deal with that?
Yeah, growing up, I was born in 76, so the late 70s, early 80s, I suppose, as you said, my father was from Hong Kong, so I looked different. So that led to curiosity, but it also led to slagging as well. I suppose the way my family dealt with it at the time, obviously they had no experience what to do, but they always felt that to treat me as I was no different than anyone else. That's what they always used to say. You're one of us, you're a dub, you're no different than anyone else. Now that was a challenge for me because then when people kind of used to treat me differently, I could never understand that, and I could never understand, well, why? If I'm the same as them, why are they slagging me, or why are they asking me these questions? So it did lead to kind of bit of fighting and a bit of upset and all that. So the one thing from, as you say, I did do the book, and looking back on it, if I was there with me now, I'd be kind of saying, you are different, but that's okay. We're all different. That's what makes us all so special. I think kids nowadays, they have so many challenges, be it the way they look, the way they feel, their confidence. I think the most important thing is to realise that we are all different, and that's okay. So so I suppose that's why I used to find the refuge of sport as a place where I got away from that.
I think that was one of the great things about the book, about highlighting that fact, but also the fact that you used it, I think, as a tool, did you, for your advantage, that it sort of drove you on, and that's where you got a lot of your passion from.
Yeah, well, as you know, I wouldn't be the tallest, and I certainly wasn't the strongest. I was quick, but I was never fast. But when I look back, why did I excel at sports? It was because I had a motivation to. I think that was the first thing. I wanted to be really good at sport, because the one thing I found about sport was that people would accept me. They didn't really care about what I looked like if I played played well. So that really, whether it was a subconscious thing, it really appealed to me, and it meant that I go from team to team, from sport to sport, and the better I got, the less people would kind of talk about how I looked.
So there's a great story in the book where you were asked to give a little talk to a school out in Bray. And when you went there, you didn't know what you were going to talk about, but you just started talking about how you grew up and the sort of difficulties you faced. Tell us a little bit about that story. It's a wonderful story.
So it was. I was asked on behalf of a charity, Cycle Against Suicide, to speak. Now I wasn't going to cycle the long distances they did, so they said, "Will you come along and do a talk?" And I said, "Yeah, no problem, no problem." So they brought me out to a school out in Bray, and I think it was Presentation Bray, girls' school, transition year. I think there was like 400 girls in the hall, and like I'd been gone from Dublin a number of years at this stage, kind of looking in the room going, what?
Who knows me?
Who knows me?
Do you remember who I used to be?
Yeah, exactly. So so I just started talking about when I grew up and the challenges that I felt, a bit like what I said to you there about how I felt. And I was trying to think of if there's someone in the room that might have felt like that, and also there could be someone in the room that's kind of slagging people now, and they mightn't realise what an impact it's having. So spoke for 10 or 15 minutes and got a clap and went down to where I was sitting, and there was these two girls coming, and I could see one was really upset, and her friend explained she was from Poland, and she just jumped and gave me a big hug, and she says, "I know exactly how you feel. That's how I feel." And I suppose it was very empowering to be able to relate to someone like that, but if you could help someone in that small way, I felt it was a really a motivation to kind of go, well, if I put down my thoughts, maybe there'd be other boys and girls or even parents that might be able to identify with those challenges and help someone out. So
that's fantastic, a wonderful story. And I suppose is that one of the reasons why you did the book as well, is to highlight that, because kids in school now, it's become just as prevalent as it is now as it was back then.
Yeah, and I think we'll talk about sport, because certainly it wasn't the most successful sporting career, but I think when I look back, and it's great to be able to kind of reflect back that, I had a great sports career, but also from a non-sporting point of view, to be able to kind of assist people that are growing up and have challenges as well, that maybe they might identify with things that I had in my life that can help them. So because as I said, I'm sure we'll talk about that. They certainly weren't the glory days with the Dubs at the time.
You say that, but I mean, and that's one of the recurring themes in the book, which I sort of couldn't understand, but I can understand a little bit where you're coming from, but you were still so successful. I mean, you won the All-Ireland when you were only 19 years of age.
Yeah, and I suppose that's the challenge with it, and it was great, and I talk about that in great detail in the book. But as a sports person, as you know, it's always about the next tournament or the next game and the next cup. And the reality was, like, that's the pinnacle of our sport, and I never got there. I never even got to a final as a player again, in an inter-county final, and I played for another 14 seasons. So year after year, you'd come back and you'd hope, you'd believe that you were better, you believe individually you could get better and better as a team, and then for whatever reason we couldn't get over the line. So kind of when I got to the end of my sporting career, I couldn't see much positivity in it. I couldn't see much value in it. So hence the reason why from the outside people say, oh well, he had a great career, he played for Dublin, and that, like, the individual and the competitor in me felt as a failure. And it wasn't until a few years after my kind of playing career that I could actually look back and say, well, hold on, it isn't that bad. I know your game is individual, but you always got that connection with the snooker players, like going back to when I watched Steve Davis
Jimmy
and Dennis
White,
Taylor, Alex Higgins. There was a great camaraderie there, and it's the same with football. Well,
not always between Alex Higgins and Steve Davis. There wasn't a great camaraderie.
Really,
There was a great rivalry, but you have that in sport today as well. I mean, you're great rivals. Even now with Dublin and Mayo, and You know, still fantastic rivalries.
Yeah, and I think, again, going through the experience that I had, like, people would assume or presume just because Mayo haven't won yet that they should be a certain way. But, like, the reality of all great teams need great challengers and great rivals. And, like, you look at the teams that are around now, the likes of the Tyrones, the Kerrys, the Mayos, the Dublins, there's not a whole lot between them, and that leads to these great games. So, yeah, I think it's great from a Dublin point of view that we've been on the right side of a few games in the last few years, but it doesn't take away the commitment and the dedication that the other teams are bringing.
You know, things are a little bit different now than they were, you know, 20 years ago, 20 odd years ago. We have a lot more people that sort of, like you, like in the selectors, that you can pass on this great knowledge. You know, when you got that success so early, do you think it was too early that you didn't have those sort of people to mind you a little bit more?
Yeah, well, it was different times.
Yeah,
like
different times.
You're talking about, like, all sports, they go through transitions and changes. Like, you look at rugby in terms of how it's gone from the amateur to professional. Like, GAA back then, it is an amateur game still, but there's a lot more knowledge and know-how now. In '95, I was very young. I was 19 when we won, and I probably didn't have the supports. GAA didn't have the supports. I played at the time. I was playing soccer in UCD, and like, they didn't really have the supports either to kind of assist me along the way. But the one thing I have is I'll always have that experience as a coach, and all the experiences, both the good times and the bad times, they will always be with me. So no matter how successful a team is that I'm involved in, I'll always remember what it's like to be on the other side, and that'll always ground me.
Like, I was 27 when I won the World Championship, but you said you were only 19 and you were sort of catapulted into this fame. You know, The Hill had a song about you, you know, boom, boom. I remember it well. I used to sing it myself. But, you know, for someone that young, it's quite a lot to take on, isn't it? Like, you know.
Yeah, well, I was the darling of The Hill. You were the darling of Dublin. I remember your entry into the Crucible.
Yeah,
so,
there's a very funny story in the book as well. Because you were playing for UCD at the time, you were playing football, and I remember you scored a goal into The Hill, and you went over. You were still in your sort of football mind because you had played football the day before for UCD, and of course you played for Dublin on the Sunday, and you scored a goal and you ran over to The Hill and you were still in soccer mode, weren't you? Tell us what happened.
Yeah. Well, it was actually, we were playing Donegal, but the night before I was playing with UCD against Finn Harps up in Finn Harps, which is Ballybuffet. It's a long way to go. So I had to come back through the night, and then we were playing Donegal in Croke Park the next day. And I got a goal. Now, it wasn't much of a goal. It was a kind of a flick. But as you say, to score my first goal in front of The Hill, I was going to celebrate it. Next minute, I was reefed up by, I think it was Sean Cal. Get back. We don't do that in this game. So, that was something I learned that day, all right.
You didn't do that again.
No, exactly. Go on.
Okay,
you should get a...
Well, I potted one red against you, so I'm in the lead at least.
It's worked out for you.
Not too bad, yeah. I'll go into commentary mode here, you know. You won't be happy with the kiss on the black, but... So, when you were growing up, Jimmy White would have been one of your heroes?
Yeah, I would have loved all the games. And particularly, there was so many characters in snooker back then. I can go back, I remember Ray Reardon, he was a comedian.
Dracula.
Like Cliff Torban, the Grinder, like Kirk Stevens, and all these guys. So I loved, and I suppose Jimmy White, he had that bit of flamboyancy about him, and obviously Alex Higgins as well. And they're the kind of characters that sports fans identify with. And every kind of sport needs them.
Alex Higgins was when I saw Alex Higgins win the World Championships in '82, and he was given the trophy, and he kept calling for his baby because he had a new little baby girl called Lauren, and the tears rolling down his face, and the wife came out, and it was one of the iconic moments in our sport, you know. And he was such a sort of a character, unpredictable, you know, but great energy, you know. And that was one of the reasons why I wanted to sort of play snooker, because of like Alex Higgins, the fact he was from Ireland as well, you know, and he was quite colourful, and And it was big back then. Like,
Oh, it was massive. And then I remember a few years later, then when Dennis Taylor won, and like I remember when the Crucible was on, like everything shut down. It was just watching the TV, and that went so
it was one
late.
of those sporting occasions that we were allowed to stay up till 1 o'clock in the morning, you know,
exactly.
because we were in school the next day.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're on a red here. Let's see how this goes.
I have to. I mean, it was probably something you might want to remember. I remember being in England watching the TV on a Sunday night, and Ken was on 140.
140, yeah.
And you're on the black.
Yeah, I was on the black for the 147. And
Talk me through
I'll tell you what happened, right? So I'm on the black for the 147, right? There's a lovely car in the foyer, which is like a Honda NSX. It's the year 2000. I'm playing Matthew Stevens in the final. I get down to the black, and I'm thinking about this car, and how am I going to get this back to Dublin?
Are you genuinely thinking that? Is that going through your head?
I have to go onto Holyhead and get the boat across, right? So I've had this black, and I'm thinking about the car, and I'm saying, now, what do I do? Do I hit it hard, or do I just drop it in, you know? So this is the black. Well, I'll tell you what, you think it's easy. Come on, you have a go, right?
Do I get a car if I bought it? But how easy is this for you in your game?
If I'm this is a simple black off a spot, but when there's like £100,000 car on the for potting it, if you miss it, you don't get anything. You know, then it's a little bit different. You know, the pocket becomes like about that size, and the balls become a little bit bigger. You know.
And were you generally thinking about the outcome?
I was a lot. Well, there's a lot. Well, no, not really. But I think it was just the pressure. I think it's like anything. It wasn't really the car or anything. It was just the fact, the nostalgia of actually, you know, making a 147 in the Masters tournament. The last person to do that was Kick Stevens back in 1984. You know, so it would have been a great piece of history that money can't buy and cars can't buy. You know, but this was the black. So go on. Let's see how easy it is. See, when you have a camera crew as well, it's not always.
And there's someone talking in the back.
You see,
that's
exactly
what
I did.
But you're still competitive.
Still competitive. Well, like both of us, we both love what we do. You know, we love. It's very hard. They say you die twice in life. You know. Now you can tell me what it's like, because the first time is when you retire. You know, and then the second time, of course, when you go. But what was it like for you? Because I know you talked about it in the book, and you came to a conclusion. 2013, was it? That you just couldn't you couldn't compete at the same level that you were used to. What was that like? Because that must have been very, very difficult.
Yeah, well, initially it was my last game for Dublin was 2009. We played Kerry and things didn't go well. I think the Gooch got a goal after like 30 seconds, and it got worse after that. I got called ashore after about 20 minutes, and we were beaten out the gate that day by Kerry. And that was my last game, and I was dropped off the panel. So that was tough, because mentally I still felt I had something to offer, and physically even I felt I had something to offer, but it wasn't to be. But when Jim Gavin took over at the end of 2012, I still had in my head that I could play. Now look back, I was 36 at the time, which probably was a bit unrealistic. But I spoke to Jim. I remember he rang me over something else, and I just said, Jim, I'm still training for this. If I got into good nick, would you consider me? And without hesitation, he said, absolutely, I'd consider anyone. And he got me in touch with their S&C guy at the time. So I was training away on my own, and literally trained up until about April, May of the following year, 2013. But then physically, it was starting to take its toll. I hurt my back, and I was picking up a few injuries and that. So I was able to ring Jim in May and kind of just say, listen, Jim, thanks for the opportunity, but I'm not going to be physically able.
Well, how were you emotionally? I mean, you must have been devastated, even when coming to that realisation.
Well, emotionally, I was devastated from, I suppose, 2009 to 2012. That was tough, and
But when you make that final decision, and it's completely final, say, I can't do it anymore.
Well, the final decision to me was that May 2013. 14, picking up the phone, and to me it was relief. It was.
Was it?
Yeah, it was. I knew I'd done as much as I could to represent Dublin again, and I actually take a lot of pride in those 4 years that I wasn't involved with Dublin because I know how much I did to try and get back. So there was a good element of closure for me at that stage, and that's why a lot of people kind of say to me now, do you miss being out there and that? And I said, no, like I know I did what I could do, I maxed out, and now I'm lucky enough I've been involved in a different capacity. But I think those initial years, because particularly when it's not in your terms as well, that's the kind of tough thing emotionally, and definitely you kind of questioned what was the point of the last 15 years if that's how it was going to finish out.
Do you feel like when you're standing on that line and you're urging your team like forward, do you feel like say, oh, I'd love to tug out now and get back out there? Let me on, Jim, let me on.
Those days are long gone.
I know, but does it sometimes in the back of your mind, you know?
Well, like, to be on the side of the pitch, you look at how the game has gone in terms of the physicality of the game now and the hits. Believe me, you're glad you don't have to take a few of the hits that they are. So, no, I think I'm just happy to see, like, when guys are playing to what they can do, and when they, like, you take Dean, for example, being able to kick that free when the pressure was on. Like, you do get a great sense of satisfaction when you know the work that he's done. So, no, I'm happy. I'm happy where I've been. So.
You see, snooker players are very fragile individuals, and that's why we took up snooker.
Right,
we didn't want the hits from like the rugby or the soccer or the GAA. You know, we're very, very like porcelain dolls. You know, or wusses you can call us as well. Okay, so we're down to the colours, right? You're 26 behind. There's 27 left on the table.
How long's left in the meter?
The light is not going to run out. It's okay. We're on electric now. Okay. But tell me, before you like, because this is a really great story in the book as well. When you were playing football, Liverpool came over for a friendly, and being a Man United fan, I love this that you actually nutmegged Phil Babb as well in that match. Tell us about that.
So we played them. I was with UCD at the time, and we played them for our centenary anniversary. The late Dr. Tony O'Neill, great connection. So we played them actually in Lansdowne Road. It was 3 days after Blackburn won the Premiership, and a bad day for Man United supporters. If you remember, I think it was at West Ham.
Don't talk to me about that one.
So they had a great team. They like David James, they'd Clough, McManaman, Fowler, Redknapp, Babsy was at the back with Steve Harkness, Dominic Mahill. Michael Owen wasn't there. He was coming. Michael Thomas played for him, who was an Arsenal legend. So we played them on a Wednesday night. So it started off okay. I got fouled for a free. Harkness fouled me, and we got a goal. And then Harkness fouled me a couple more times, and then Babsy said to me, Jay, stay on your feet, he's going to kill you. And I was like, I'm not doing anything.
What do you want me to do?
Yeah, exactly.
And what about when you nutmegged him and that must have felt good?
Yeah, so there was a ball coming up to me, and I could feel he was right behind me, so I just kind of let it through my legs, and I went through his legs, and some great cameraman got a nice picture of it.
Fantastic,
so it's
but
in the
you
book,
had a possibility, because Roy Evans came up to you, he said he really liked you, and he'd like to see you at a trial for Liverpool.
Yeah, that was, I think it was April or May '95, and I met Roy Evans who was the manager. I met him in the hotel after, and he came over and said, listen, well done tonight, we'd love to get you over. And at the time, I was about to start preparing for the championship with Dublin. So never really thought anything of it. Thought if it was going to happen, it would happen in the future. The summer for me kind of took off in terms of Dublin won the All-Ireland. And I kind of refer to it in the book. It's like my sliding doors moment. If the night of the All-Ireland final, if Kevin Moran had said, who was looking after me at the time, if he'd have said, there's a ticket, get over to Anfield in the morning, who knows? But I think the one thing I've learned about sport, no different than you, I think it has to be in your heart. And I think the Dubs was always there, and I think that was always going to be my calling. But that's me. Could have been a contender story.
Just imagine you had gone over to Liverpool, right? We may never have heard of Michael Owen at all.
True.
You would have taken his place.
And you would have been cursing me at every Man U and Liverpool
Okay, you're
match.
26 behind,
So,
right?
no
27
pressure.
on the table. No pressure.
Am I doing this right?
Yeah, not too bad. Look at that. Okay.
Oh.
He's on the green. He's on the green. Perfect. Now, hold on, before you take the green, I'll just clean that white because there's a little bit of dirt
Make sure
on it.
you put it back in the right spot.
Oh, Whoa, you haven't stretched that much for a while. Look at this. Come on, give me a break.
Clean that white again there, will you?
He's only playing 5 minutes. He's got to clean it. Oh, yeah. It's very dirty, this white, isn't it? You know?
So, and from your own point of view, how you're obviously still playing.
No, I love playing. You know, it gets harder and harder. You know, but I love the competition, and I love coming in here and doing my practice and that. But I know I'm getting sort of to the end of my career. You know, and that's why it was so interesting listening to you about your closure, and about like when you actually took the time to say, okay, that's enough. You know, I'm getting to that, but I haven't got to it yet. But I know it's coming. You know, and that's for me, it's a little bit scary, but I know like there's going to be other things, you know, that I'm involved in and stuff like that. But I'm just a little bit scared, you know.
Yeah. But like you got to keep playing, like I suppose,
exactly.
because it's not a physical sport.
Yeah, exactly.
Obviously, your career can go on.
Yeah, and you'll be retired for the rest of your life anyway, you know.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Anyway, that's where I am. That looks good. Okay, Dad, no problem. Blue, pink, and black required. This young man from Finglas.
It's the biggest break I've ever had.
As Jean-Marie would say.
That helps.
Multi-talented sportsman. And he can play
it go
snooker
enough?
as well. Right, this is the black. 6 behind 7. It's a bit like the 147 black, but on the other side. And as a left-hander, that would suit you more.
Should help.
Yeah.
I'm thinking Dennis Taylor. I'm thinking Ken
1985,
Doherty.
yeah. This would be your greatest achievement. He's done it. Yeah, the little brilliant.
I couldn't have done it without good coaching and a great referee.
Fantastic. Well, listen, it's a pleasure meeting you. You've
You too,
always
Ken.
been a hero, and I love the book. It's fantastic. And no matter what you do in your life, I know you're still with Dublin, but the very best luck. Whatever you do, I know you're going to be very successful, and wish you all the best.
Cheers, appreciate that, Ken. Really enjoyed
I'm
it.
sorry you beat me there.